welcome back, ladies and gents. It's been a long while since we last recorded, unfortunately, because of the coronavirus. There's not that much football going on, but as always in the world of Iraqi football, there's always something interesting to discuss. I'm your host, Hassan Bilal, and I'm delighted to have today the superstar of Iraqi football, Yaser Kasim. I'm so excited to have him here, but I'm equally as excited to have Hassan Osama joining us today. Hassan, welcome.
Great to be back. It's been a while since we've last recorded, and tonight we've got a big one with Yaser Kasim, and it should be great.
Yeah, I'm really excited to pick his brains on all the things that's happened in his career. Obviously, he's had a very, very eventful time with the Iraqi national team and his club career, etc. So, without further ado, Yaser, welcome.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Nah, it's absolute pleasure, man. I can't really explain to you how much it means to have you here. I'm a huge fan. You're one of my favourite ever footballers, and I've got so many big moments of just pure joy that I owe pretty much to you, man. So, first of all, how are you, man? How have you been coping with the whole coronavirus and all that sort of thing?
I'm good, man. You know, I was playing obviously in Iraq, and the season ended early because of it. But I got back to London when the airports opened. I stayed over in Iraq a little bit. I had to stay over because the airports were closed. But I got back to London, and it's good. I've been okay with it, and it's slowly picking up around here. You know, with the fitness industry and the football, and meeting friends and stuff. So I'm okay with it.
You're good to be back home, yeah?
Yeah, man, it's good. Obviously, in your own sort of natural habitat where I grew up, like London. So it's good to be back. Obviously, things are a little bit restrictive with the virus, but it's good to be back, man.
Excellent. So, where do we start with your career, man? Let's start right at the beginning, because there's so much that's happened in such a short period of time with you. Talk to me how you got into football.
Well, obviously, I was born in Iraq, in Baghdad, and I grew up like any kid on the streets of Baghdad because the weather's nice, the kids are always out playing around and about, so I kicked ball there, and I used to be a goalkeeper there, so we used to play, big games on the street, corner off the streets, not let cars get in. So I kind of fell in love with it then. And then when I came to England, it became a little bit different because I wouldn't play with as many people, but I'd be by myself with the ball. I'd go down, as I started growing up into, early teenage years, I'd go down to the Westway, which is a sports centre with AstroTurf football pitches in West London. Yeah. And I'd play there. And from there, obviously, do a lot of training. I'd play for the Westway Club as a Sunday League side, and then I'd move on to academy football from there.
So at what age did you realise, like, I'm pretty good here? When did it click that, okay, football's going to be the career move for me?
Around early teenage years, so 11, 12. I would say I was good. I would say I was very determined to do well. So, because you can't really, when you're young, you hear about other players and you see them do things and you think, oh, he's good, or that person's good. But as you grow older, when I look back, I say, well, how do I know if that guy's good? He could have done a really nice skill, but he did it in such a bad position and got away with it. And you go, oh, he's really good. But as you get older, you realize, what I'm trying to say is you shouldn't really compare yourself to anybody other than how determined are you to do it, to play the game. And I was determined around, I think signing my first contract at 11, playing for the under 11s or 12s at Tottenham. It really just gave me that push where I said, this is what I want to do. I want to keep going with this. And there was a pathway. You go from 11 to 12, under 13s, under 14s, under 15s. So once I saw that or felt it, I said that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. But loving the actual game was, since I was a kid. I was 7 when I watched the '98 World Cup. France win the '98 World Cup with Zidane, and obviously the great French side, the great Brazilian side, the Croatian side that got to the semi-final, the Italians, all of that. So I really fell in love with it when probably around that age, 6 or 7.
So how big a role did your father or your uncles or if you have any brothers, how much of an influence did they have in terms of kind of getting you involved in the football world?
Well, everything was down to my dad. My dad wanted us to do sports, but his first sport was tennis. So he wanted everybody to do tennis. So I've got 2 siblings, and they both did tennis, but I decided to do football. I did a training camp in tennis, but I would have rather kick the tennis ball than actually, hit it with the racket. So I went down the football route, but it was all down to my dad to get us into, sport, because he always wanted us to be physically in tune with ourselves and, our bodies and do well for our health.
What was it about football that you just enjoyed so much more than tennis?
It's because you have a ball and you're by yourself. You don't really need somebody else with you. And I watching tennis, and especially my sister's a couple of years older than me, I probably already knew as a kid, if I was to take a tennis ball and go down the street, I can't do anything with it, a tennis ball and a racket. But a football, I can. I don't need a coach. I don't need a tennis court. All I need is a football.
Yeah, fair.
So I realized early on, hey, I just want a football.
Fair.
Yeah. That's
So what about, like, you said you're 11, you first joined Tottenham Hotspurs.
Mm-hmm.
How did that develop? Like, what was it like being at such a huge club and you're only 11?
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. Because before that I was at Fulham for a couple of months and they didn't decide to sign me for some reason or other. So when I went to Tottenham, I already got a taste of being at a club. And when you're a kid, you get the kit and you have training times and there's coaches and there's a nice training ground. It's very nice. So it gives you that sort of feeling of, hey, I'm somewhere and I can be somebody. That kind of feeling. But at the end of the day, it's really down to you. Any football club is just a pathway for you to become a footballer. So the Tottenham, was a good pathway because as I got older, more people got involved in that club that were quite influential on me and gave me the right sort of recipe to make it as a player.
Okay, so I'm kind of skipping ahead here, right? But I'm going to ask it anyway, and maybe we'll come back to it later on. But you growing up in Tottenham, right? And then you've played with a lot of Iraqi players, and you've seen the pros and cons in their game. What did Tottenham teach you at that young age that a lot of Iraqi players don't actually benefit from?
Well, I got to be honest, it wasn't just Tottenham. I moved to Brighton. And I had a coach there called Luke Williams that taught me quite a bit about football as well. And it's probably very, very important to mention him. And you put all that together and you get to Iraq and you go, okay, hold on. When you watch the players, you realize they haven't been coached the right way. They haven't been taught the right way. Breaking it down now, I could easily just say, look, first of all, it's personality. The Iraqi personality is, a little bit like, make a mistake, don't show that you made a mistake. Because I think we're a little bit afraid of the consequences, and that's because of the history of Iraq. The parents, and, before we used to have a dictator. I mean, this is my thinking. Whether it's true or not, I still don't know. But my thinking is that's the way these guys feel. And these players feel if you make a mistake, you're kind of embarrassed. Don't show it. So that's not good. First of all, because if you do make a mistake, you gotta just own up to it and go again. It's not a problem. It's training. So that's number one. And we don't have that in England. In England, especially when I went to Brighton, if we made a mistake, It was almost to the point where you had to laugh at the mistake and just get on with it. Like, haha, like, look what you've done. You're stupid, sort of thing. Move on. Like, everybody laughs at each other. Like, what were you doing there? What were you thinking?
Okay, sorry to interrupt, but would you say, okay, so you mentioned Iraq. You said it was like a part of it to do with the dictatorship, part of it to do with like pride. How much of it is actually like ego-driven, do you think?
Yeah, pride. Actually, that's a good point. Yeah, it's kind of pride. The Iraqi mentality is a little bit like, hey, I need to show the world that I'm good, that I do well for myself, that I can do things on the football pitch.
Yeah, like the whole ghira aspect of Iraqi football.
Ghira? Sorry?
You know, like when the Iraqi, so you have to play with ghira and like pride of representing Iraq.
Yeah, but also pride that you haven't, messed around, you haven't messed up, that you're doing good for yourself.
Yeah.
So it's kind of ego and a little bit of pride, but at the same time, it's also you're a little bit scared. You're a little bit scared of your elders, of what the coach might say or do. So kind of that stops you from pushing yourself to fail, pushing yourself, trying new things. Maybe making a pass with your left foot, but that's your weaker foot. Maybe trying to bring the ball down in a more difficult way instead of, taking the easy way out. In training, it's just training. So you don't develop as quickly as other players. Whereas, other people or other countries, they don't care. They'll do something, and if they don't do it right, they go again and they do it again. So from my sort of training, and then going into Iraq, that's what I saw. I saw, that sort of not willingness to fail, and also that little bit of pride to do well, and it kind of hurts them too much if they don't do well. And I've seen that in my own sort of training and my own sort of games that I've had to overcome. So that's one of the differences. But also the other difference is because they're not backed so much by the country, the players themselves, whereas in the UK, if you fail, the government will help you, the government will step in one day if things are not working out for you, and you can go a different pathway instead of making it as a footballer. In those countries, for example, like Iraq, hey, it's either do it or that's it, you're nobody. And that could be overwhelming, especially for 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old and their parents, because their parents are looking at them and going, if they don't make it, what will they do? And then that becomes just a cluster of pressure on someone. And, more times than not, a 15, 16-year-old will break with that sort of pressure. They won't make it and become something, like a footballer, because it's too much. You're not supposed to have that sort of pressure on you at 24, 25, let alone at 15, 16. So, but I saw that, in the first team in Iraq, and I'm obviously guessing that it's with the younger lot as well. It's definitely with the younger lot, with the conversations I've had with some Iraqi players.
What about in terms of like coaching and like the quality of coaching, aspects that might not get taught or focused on as much with the Iraqi football, like the tactical side of things? What differences did you see there?
To be honest, it just depends on the person who's coaching. But but honestly, at a level where you're going international, you're gonna have to coach the right way. What I'm trying to say is you have to coach very results orientated with the players that you have. So if the coach does something, he's doing it to get a result every single game, even in the friendly, so that he can shape the team. But the coaching problem also has a federation problem, because the federation, the way the players are picked and who they put into the national team isn't chosen by the coach. It's chosen sometimes by people in the federation, and it's like you're basically telling the coach, here you go and make something happen. There's a lot of problems from up top to down bottom with Iraq. So it's not just one specific thing. You know, if I'm looking at myself and going, hey, I'll coach Iraq one day, I'd rather have all the power than half the power. And if I don't have any power, then I'm not even going to be in there. And that's the problem with football in Iraq, is there's not one. There isn't a system in place where you go, okay, these lot pick a coach, then the coach gets on with it and he picks the players. It's a bunch of different things involved. So you can't even really start talking about coaching until you start talking about what players are coming in. Who is it? 2 players per position, the type of players that are coming in, the foreign players, or is it the homegrown players? You know, what's going on, and how's the relationships between the foreign players and the homegrown players, and you know, is the coach backed by a certain, you know, background in Iraqi football, in Iraqi society? So all of that needs to be stripped away. And fundamentally, it just needs to be like, hey, we've got a bunch of players who play football in Iraq and abroad. Let's get the best 25 for each training camp, for each game, for each tournament, and let's do our best. And if you work from that, then nobody should get involved other than, you know, the right people from up top to down bottom.
I'm sure we're going to discuss this in a lot more depth later, but before we go into too much focus on Iraq, I want to kind of continue looking at your kind of career path. You were at Spurs, the kind of the class that you were with, a lot of them have gone on to have like unbelievable careers, but you played alongside people like Kevin Trippier, right? Harry Kane, etc.
Danny Rose, Andros Townsend, all those guys.
How does it feel like thinking, right, I grew up with all these amazing players now that you guys are all older? Are you in touch with any of them? Or?
Yeah, I'm in touch with quite a few of them. John Obika, who's playing up in Scotland, is a close friend of mine. Even players that didn't make it are close friends of mine. Yeah, I'm in touch, but it's not like some of them. It's not regularly. It's every now and again we meet up. But it feels good, man, because you're coming from, you know, I don't know, school sort of background. You go into full time with these guys, and then you see these guys going on to their pathway, and you go on to your pathway. And you know, if they're doing well in football or out of football, I'm happy for whoever that, you know, came across my path, and I only hope the best for them. Some great players and very, very good people.
So from Tottenham, you said you went to Brighton and Hove Albion. How comes you decided to leave Spurs?
Well, I found it, you know, a little bit uneasy, the pathway to the first team football. I didn't think it was a club that was very nurturing. From reserve team to first team, from youth team to reserve team, yeah, pretty good. But from reserves to make that final jump to the first team and go on, I didn't feel it was very nurturing. So I said, you know what, I want to leave. There was complications with that, because obviously you have to pay compensation. And at the time, I wasn't leaving to go to another club straight away. I was just wanting to go somewhere else and try somewhere else. I did try somewhere, but they asked for too much compensation at that club, and then eventually I landed a little bit later than I wanted to, but I landed in Brighton later on, and I signed there.
Were you at Sheffield United, the club you were referring to earlier? Yeah.
I went to Sheffield United, and at the time they were buying, I think, Carl Walker and Carl Norton in a deal. So they were buying them from Sheffield United. And Sheffield United obviously asked them, how much do you think you'd want for Yaser? And they gave them a ridiculous sum. And the coach at the time was like, yeah, I mean, he quoted a number to me, and he goes, it's just obscene. So I started like kind of laughing with him, and then he goes to me, yeah, but then it got serious, because he's like, yes, I actually want you here. If they even said this number, even then we couldn't do it, but at least maybe we could negotiate with it. But what they really wanted was to go to court. That's how it works. You know, when you the rules are, if you leave and compensation has to be given to that club, if they don't agree with the club that you're signing for a certain fee, you go to court. It's like court for arbitration. And I think that's what Tottenham wanted to do in the end, is go to court. But no club was willing to go to court for me because they don't know the price. The court could say 1 million, 2 million. There isn't a law that specifies that amount for each year you are at a football club. And I was there for 7 years. So in the end, as time went by, the people changed at Tottenham, and I ended up at Brighton. And obviously, the manager there was the assistant manager at Tottenham for a while, so there was connection. Gus Poyet spoke with people in Tottenham, and they ended up signing a piece of paper saying, we don't want any money, but if he does get sold on, we'll get 50% of his sell-on fee.
In hindsight, do you think that was a good decision to leave Spurs? Because you talk about like the jump to the first team being quite difficult, but at the same time, having said that, we looked at some of the players that did make that jump, and a lot of them have gone on to have incredible careers. So how does it feel in like hindsight? Do you think it was the right move, or?
No, I think in hindsight, I think it was the best move to go to Brighton, but it's a little bit of unluckiness that Brighton at that time were really, really pushing for Championship and Premier League. I'm telling you, if they weren't pushing as much as they were, I probably would have got my break in Brighton a lot earlier than usual and played a bunch more games in League One for Brighton, and when they went up to Championship, played a bunch of games in the Championship for Brighton. But I was a little bit unlucky at that time because they were pushing. Because at Tottenham, as many players had made it, and you say as many players as have made it, there's a ton of other players that it didn't work out for the reasons I was talking about. Stagnation, they weren't given a pathway to the first team, they got loaned out, come back, sign new deals to just get loaned out again. So, if I made that move to Brighton maybe a season earlier or two and made it into the first team, and then Poyet took over, I think it would have been a little bit of a different story with Brighton, and I would have got a lot more game time than I did in the 2.5 years I was there.
You were loaned out to Luton and Macclesfield as well. How did you find that?
Just looking back at it, it's not my style of play. I've gone down. Luton's quite a big club. Macclesfield's not as big, but it's not my style of play. I would have probably preferred to have got loaned out to a foreign club. But I was young. And at the time, my agent was an English agent, so it wasn't like he had the contacts to loan me out to a foreign club. But if I was, directing my own sort of loans back then, I would have probably tried to get a loan out, into more of the Portuguese, Spanish, Dutch leagues,
Why
Belgium. Because of their style of play, they'd appreciate a player like me a little bit more. A player that gets the ball moving for the team, organises the team defensively, works hard for the team, but, doesn't really go around flying into tackles and, just shouting at everybody, just being smart about his game. Those type of players are appreciated a little bit more abroad than in England. And especially in the lower leagues, then kind of not really appreciated at all. I would have looked for a foreign club to be loaned out to.
You say that, but Swindon, they fell in love with you very, very quickly. How come you succeeded there, even though they're based in the UK?
Because when I went there, the owner was very close friends with people in Tottenham. His best friend is Tim Sherwood. Tim Sherwood was the academy director, or the person that looked after the academy at that time, with I think another guy called John McDermott, who looked after me from when I was young. And they brought a bunch of loan players from Tottenham. So they were like, hey, we want to play a certain way. Then the assistant manager became Luke Williams, who was my coach at Brighton, who taught me a lot about the game. So everything kind of fell in place, and they saw me and went, hold on a second, we can build everything around Yaser. because that's all he does, is he passes the ball, he brings players into the game, he controls the game, and it flows through Yaser. So they gave me that backing, and hence why it worked at that club for me. So yeah, it was just a little bit, things just came together. But as you know, I think different people that wanted to bring me or buy me later on in my Swindon career, it didn't pan out because, again, my type of play isn't accustomed to most teams in England, just very few teams. And as Swindon shows, you kind of have to get lucky on how the club is built.
So, your style, was there ever, like you said, it's suitable for foreign teams? Was there any ever serious interest from teams abroad that wanted to sign you?
No, the market doesn't work like that. Foreign teams don't sign players from Championship, let alone League One. They like to, bring players from abroad.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about Swindon, because you played so many games there and you were doing so well. At one point there was a lot of interest from Swansea, who were in the Premier League, and they were actually doing really well. Can you talk us through that period in your life? What was it? What did it feel like being like at the maybe the peak of your career, or just flying in your career?
It was great. What can I say, bro? Yeah. It was amazing to be playing in a team that I was a part of, kind of built around me. It had its struggles, but hey, I was always the type of guy that was just, just keep going every week in, week out. Play your best football and try to win. And it taught me a lot. So I enjoyed it a lot, man.
How was it getting from a side, I say as small as Swindon, I mean that with respect, all the way to play at Wembley in the playoff final? How was that journey?
It was a great journey. I loved it. Swindon, compared to the teams that were in that league at that time, there was, good teams there. Wolves the previous year, then Preston. These clubs are bigger than Swindon, but we got there. But at the end of the day, it was a club that wasn't built for going up the leagues. It was more to, make players and sell them. So I was obviously disappointed that we lost and we didn't get into the championship.
A lot of your colleagues, though, from that team that reached the final, they went on to sign for teams in the Premier League and the Championship. Why do you think you didn't get your break to sign for a team bigger than Swindon in England?
Same, it's the style of play. I think the style of play. That's what it comes down to. And obviously, behind the scenes, certain moves that people make on your behalf. But it's mainly the style of play.
Was it at any point, because I heard this from different sources, and maybe you could confirm it for us, I heard there was interest in you from a variety of teams, but Swindon were being very unreasonable and unfair in their demands, and they were refusing to sell you unless it was like a astronomical price. Can you confirm this?
No, I think at the end of the day, if you got a good price on me, remember that as the years ticked on my contract, they got to sell. And it wasn't like I was sitting in the, like I would. It's not like when I was talking to the owner, I wasn't talking to him, how do I say it, as somebody who was going to stay there for 10 years. I was talking to him normally and saying, hey, if a deal comes through or a bid comes through, what are you gonna do? And he always did tell me. I mean, I gotta just take it at face value. He did tell me, if a bid comes through, we'll negotiate it and make sure we don't get ripped off, but we'll never stand in your way. Because he was a player himself, and he's a businessman and he always wanted to make a good deal for himself and the club. But as the years tick by, you got to remember, when there's 2 years left on a deal, that means it's becoming very difficult for the club unless the player signs a new contract. And I was never going to sign a new contract. And then when there was a year left, that's like, hey, you got to sell him, or we're going to lose him in a year, or 6 months he can sign somewhere else. And that's what kind of happened. I think truly what happened was I had certain attention from certain clubs, but a bid never came through that was,
concrete.
A proper concrete.
So are we referring to Swansea here? Because there was reports on the
I think that was one of the
deadline.
That was one of the main clubs.
Was there other clubs involved that you can name?
There was, but I can't name names now, and I don't even know if the people that were at the time at that club still there. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But there was other clubs.
Fair enough. Can we ask about that Swindon? The Swansea deal. How close was that to fruition?
I don't know what happened at the time with that club, and I still don't know who's there or thereabouts, because you got to remember there's an owner, then there's a CEO below him, and there's people below that and below that. But I know from talking to certain people, there's somebody there that really wanted me to come over and sign for them at that time, and he was pretty high up in the club. But you don't know how a club is run. All I know is because they were playing certain type of football, they appreciated my style than, say, someone like a Stoke City, not now, but back then, who used to just go long and, kick the hell out of it and be very physical. A Stoke City would look at me and go, that's no way our type of player. But Swansea at that time would look at me and go, that's our type of player. And they did. And there was, real attention. But unless the deal gets done, it doesn't get done.
Yeah, I remember, man. I was sat at home just refreshing Twitter, waiting for some news to come through from one of the Iraqi journalists or something from the BBC, just to confirm the deal. But it was like it ticked over past the transfer deadline day, and unfortunately nothing happened. Was that like a heartbreak for you, or did you just kind of accept it, or how did that make you feel, knowing that the deal didn't happen?
I didn't know what to think, to be honest. I was never in that position before. But at the end of the day, you want to keep going and improving yourself and, pushing yourself to new heights. I wasn't obviously going to sit back and go, hey, it doesn't matter to me now that deal didn't happen. I obviously was going to think, hey, I wish that deal did happen. But at the same time, I had a club and I had a contract, and I had to go out there and play football. And I'll play and go win football games. And not just win football games, win training, do well in training and win training games. But around that time, players were getting sold as well in Swindon. And the quality kind of dropped within the club. And as much as you can fight on and off the pitch, if the people around you are not really, growing the football club, you're kind of fighting a losing battle.
So the last season, let's say, would you say you weren't at your best, or you struggled with injuries, or? I
struggled with a bit of injuries, but at the same time, you're in the last year of your contract and you don't know where the club is going. Other than that, I felt the club wasn't very consistently good in its operations. And they ended up obviously not doing well, and I was in and out of injuries, and it messes you up, because you don't want to be the guy who's injured and at the end of your contract and go into another club injured.
Fair enough.
Even then, to be honest, I played through injury. I played through an ankle injury. A friend of mine came to watch me in one of the games, and he said, "You're just not running correctly. there's something wrong with you. And I go, yeah, I'm playing with like torn ligaments in my ankle. And that's because I wanted to do well for myself, in the sense that I was in my last year of my deal, and also for the club, because we needed to stay in the league.
So how was it when you signed for Northampton? Were you excited, or were you disappointed that you kind of stayed at the same league, or what were your thoughts when you signed that deal?
I wasn't so disappointed by that time to be signing in the same league, but I was kind of disappointed in the sense that I was hoping I'd go abroad, but there wasn't deals. You see, the way football works is it's like a business, in the sense that if your market is in League One or Championship in England, it's very difficult to then go to a top league in maybe Holland or maybe France or Spain, and sign for a club there, and then suddenly be playing like one of the weeks against Barcelona or Real Madrid or Ajax or against PSG. The market kind of doesn't work like that, unless you've got certain connections that can make that move for you, and that comes with a bit, networking and a bit of luck. So I wasn't so much disappointed, to answer your question, that I was signing for a League One club. I was more disappointed that I couldn't get my move abroad, because I felt my style would be much more appreciated abroad. But I couldn't make it at that time.
You talk about like playing against teams like Barcelona every other week or whatever. You've played against huge teams as well in your career. I remember the first game where I actually I saw you play a full 90 minutes was against Chelsea, and you didn't exactly look out of your depth. In fact, you played very, very, very well. You're probably the best player in your team that match. Do you think you could have done it against a team like Barcelona, or like in a league like Spain or Holland?
Well, imagine that you're playing Chelsea, right? And to this day, I know that what they brought on the pitch was different to many other games that I've played teams against have brought. They brought something that was a higher level, but like you said, I wasn't out of my depth and I wasn't out of place. So imagine just playing week in, week out against top teams like that. Maybe not week in, week out. Maybe out of, the month you play once. That means out of 12 months or the 10 months you play 10 teams that are like that are top of the top. Guess what? You as a player become fundamentally better. You become smarter. You become stronger. You realize your weaknesses better. It's just... you become a much more rounded player and a much more mature player very quickly. That's what that game taught me. And remember, my style was based on that sort of game, which was Chelsea were at that time very counter-attacking under Mourinho. And they had just a depth to their tactical knowledge that was so great. All the top teams have that, but they have different styles. Mourinho's was counter-attacking. They'd win it on the edge of their box, and they'd be over in our box getting a goal, shot on goal, or getting a corner.
It was 2-0 the result for that match, right?
Yeah, 2-0.
Yeah, I remember it. Who did you trade shirts with afterwards?
I didn't get a shirt.
Really?
I never got. No, I didn't. But we lost. You lost. I don't think. No, I never got a shirt. We lost. I wasn't looking to get a shirt when you lose.
Yeah, fair enough. To be fair, I respect that attitude, man. Alex Ferguson, everybody who listens to this knows I'm a big United fan. He instilled that attitude in United players as well. If you lose, you don't get a shirt.
Yeah, simple. If you win, hey, can I have your shirt? And if he doesn't give it to you, he doesn't give it to you. Same with us. I wasn't going to go get somebody's shirt when we lost.
Yeah, fair enough. So, hang on, let's go back to this. You signed for Northampton. You wanted to kind of sign abroad. It didn't happen. Talk us through that move. Like, why did you sign for them?
The manager at the time, Justin Edinburgh, who's unfortunately passed away, he said, yes, I need you at this club and I'll make sure it's the right atmosphere and environment for you. The second time I spoke to him, he said that. First time I said, I've got to think about it and I'm not sure. Then he spoke to my agent at that time, and then we spoke again, and he said, yes, come, sign the deal. I'm going to make sure this is the right place for you. So I couldn't say no by then, because, you know, there was interest abroad, but there wasn't a deal in place. And he, at the time, had the same agent I had previously. So they knew me. The previous agent knew me and knew my style and knew my personality. And the manager was so, you know, up for signing me. But I turn up, he doesn't necessarily know what to do with me. He doesn't know the plan, how to, you know, shift the right players in the right positions and create the right style. Nonetheless, okay, we can work with it. I tried to work with it, but he got sacked after 4 or 5 games, I think a couple of weeks into the season. And then it's like, hey, I'm kind of in no man's land. I've got a deal in place. It's not a bad deal, but then again, I did want to go abroad, and I only signed because this manager had, you know, promised me he was going to make it right. He was going to create a winning culture. And then you bring a different coach in, and that different coach wasn't the guy that signed me. And
it was Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank that came in, right?
Yeah, it was Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, and he just, yeah, it was the wrong type of fit for me with Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank.
Was it personal stuff, or you say it was tactical?
I don't think anything's ever personal. When a coach comes in and he's got 25 players, he's never going to come after a player and go, yeah, it's personal, unless you make it personal. And I've never made it personal in my whole career. I've never tried to make it personal with a coach. I've always made it about the work, about, you know, hey, this isn't right for me on the pitch, or hey, how am I going to play if you want me just to kick it into the corner flag? Like, that's not my style. So it was never personal. It was just more, you know, he's got his tactics. He wants to play a certain way. I believe he could, you know, his man management could have been a bit better. But at the end of the day, he had his style and I have mine, and it just didn't work out.
Did he give you a fair chance? Because I mean, you played a few games at the beginning.
But you can't say he wants to give you a fair chance when he doesn't want a player like me. So do you understand? He doesn't even want a player like me.
I get that, but surely the manager thinks, okay, maybe Yaser is not really my style, but maybe I can turn him into the player I want him to be by giving you minutes and tactics and instructions.
Yeah, you're talking about a different level of managers now. You're talking about a level of managers that are willing to risk their livelihood for a player. You're talking about a mindset where, you know, how do I say it? You're talking about kind of like a Guardiola and like what other managers?
Sir Alex Ferguson kind of thing. Where they can
yes, like Ferguson. They have so much power. They have so much backing. They have such a big name that they can influence a player's mind to the point where they go, okay, hey, this is what I want from you, and this is how you're going to do it. And if you do this, we're going to go to the top together. Jimmy Floyd at that time is not that type of guy, and it wasn't like he was looking to take I didn't feel he was looking to take Northampton to the top. I was feeling like he was going to play the players that he wanted, bring in the players that he wanted, and get the results that he wanted, and probably, you know, make it to the champ with Northampton or move on to another championship club.
Right.
Because he came from QPR, so he wanted to go back to the championship.
So you had a contract for 2 years, right? How long were you there at Northampton for?
I ended up being there about a season and a half. Because after the first year, I think Jimmy Floyd had gone. Then there was a new manager, and the new manager did tell me, hey, I'm not sure this is going to be the place for you. I said, okay, no problem. I'll look to leave. But when you're not playing, games and you're not getting minutes, it's difficult. And, you know, we were trying to sort out some sort of compromise on the contract, and they weren't very good with it, but nonetheless, we got it sorted. But it took me into the next transfer window, so I was there for a season and a half.
And then you went for a long patch where you were unable to find a club. That must have been a really difficult time for you.
I'd already been through that patch because I'd left Tottenham and I went to another club, and it took me a bit of time to sign for Brighton, and that was via Sheffield United. So I'd already been through it, and at the same time I was building my own thing, my investments outside football. But one of my main worries was as well, towards the end of my Northampton career, they got a new coach, and that coach, he seems reasonable, and he got me back into training with the first team because the club was trying to push me out and they were making me train with the reserves. But he got me back. But as I was getting back into the first team training, I was really, really pushing myself to, you know, go, hey, I could get back and do well for this coach and he'll back me. Not knowing that he only put me back because he wanted to just have a good atmosphere around the club and just get everybody involved. In my mind, I'm always, hey, this is an opportunity, let's do it, let's take it. And I tried my damn hardest to get back in, but the club were never going to let me play again around that time because we were negotiating out of the deal. And I picked up a little bit of an injury. So when I picked up a little bit of an injury, I still pushed it, and I ended up obviously negotiating on my deal, but having a bit of an injury. And so I rehabbed it after that, and that's why I kind of spent a bit of time out. And I wasn't too down about it because I wanted to be 100% before moving somewhere. And hey, you know, things work out in its own time, and I moved to Sweden.
And you finally got your move abroad. Erbil, how was that?
It was great. Hey, I wanted to go somewhere where they play a certain brand, a certain style of football. I didn't think it would be Sweden, but I ended up going to Sweden. It was a mid-table side when I went there. They were in the middle of the season because their seasons are flipped. They play through the summer and they begin around February and end in November, December time. And I said to myself, hey, this is an opportunity that I'd like to take. I took it. I signed a short-term deal and I got in the team reasonably quick, a month without doing a pre-season. And, you know, help the team stabilize itself because as I was coming in, they weren't getting the right results. But I could have a feeling like it's a mid-table club, but they just got to change their attitude a little bit in the changing room and on the training pitch and on match days where they need to, you know, beat the teams they should beat. And I helped with that, and I trained really well, and I got into the side in the end.
Do you think you kind of deserved an extension on your contract, or were you never interested in that?
No, I negotiated. I myself made that deal happen, and I negotiated it, and there was an extension of 2 years on it. But you got to face the reality of football sometimes and realize that, hey, things are not in your hand, even if you do well on the pitch. Sometimes that's why agents are so important in the game of football, because on your behalf, they can really influence the outcome of a club's decision. And I didn't have an agent at that time, and I negotiated my deal and negotiated the extension, but they didn't take the extension. And I know the reasons why, but at the end of the day, I wasn't unhappy about them not taking the extension because, you know, I think it was, you know, I went there, did well, played, got good results for them, and they gave me an opportunity to play abroad. So we were both happy.
I was told that it was Ahmed Yassin's brother Zaid that was negotiating on your behalf, but you're saying you did it yourself.
No, he got in contact with them, and he spoke with the coach, and then I spoke with the coach. But when I went over there, I made the deal myself.
Right. Okay. Because there were rumors circling that he was your new agent. But that's
no. Look, I don't have an agent at the moment. I don't have an agent. Zaid is a good person that I know that talks to clubs on my behalf. But whenever I do a deal, I do the deal myself, and whoever's got me the contact is on the deal with me, and I look after them as I should. So.
Fair. So how?
I don't actually have an outright agent. I'm not signed with anybody.
Yeah. So you go from Sweden. You finish your the season, and then in January you finish in November, right?
Yeah. November, late November,
and then you sign in January with Erbil. Nobody was expecting that. How did you come to the conclusion that this was the right move for you?
It's just the fact that when the season ended in Sweden, it's difficult to sign for another European club where their seasons are from August to May. Their January window, they don't really look for, they look at players that they need to get to fill in certain places, maybe injuries or this and that. And as a midfielder, I wasn't getting the opportunity to go to maybe a Dutch club. Even though I tried, I had some connections in Holland, or maybe like a Belgium, or maybe like a France, or even Spain. Again, it wasn't working out abroad, so Erbil came in, and I actually had another deal in place in another Asian country. I don't really want to mention, but it's very far away from Iraq, and that fell through. So that week it fell through. We were negotiating wages, whatever, everything. It kind of fell through. It fell through. It just fell through. I said, you know what, Erbil is willing to do it. Let's sign the deal and go to Erbil.
Did you enjoy your time there?
I did. At the beginning, I did. While the games were going, I did. But obviously, when COVID hit, it became a little bit of a different story, and unfortunately, it didn't end as well as I'd hoped it did.
I heard there were difficulties with wages and that sort of thing.
Yeah, difficulty with wages, difficulty with living arrangements, difficulties with a lot of things. But at the end of the day, it should never be difficult to communicate. I don't care if you're Kurdish, born in Kurdistan, if you're Swedish, if you're Indian, if you're UK based, whatever. Communicate. But it's kind of frustrating. It was really frustrating, actually, and I came out on TV and spoke about it in national TV in Iraq in one of the TV stations. I'm Iraqi. Communicate with me. I'm your brother. You're Iraqi or Kurdish background, because Erbil is more of the Kurdish side. I'm still one of you guys. You are one of me. Sit down with me and talk to me. The people at the club, at the top, sit down and talk to me. We all want what's best for you, for me, and for your family, for my family, because you live in the country and I've come to the country after leaving it for so long, and we all want to help each other. Let's communicate. And the breakdown of communication, I wouldn't even say breakdown, it was non-existent. That's what frustrated me. I didn't like that. Forget the money, forget everything else. I didn't like the was non-existent communication.
It's a shame. But I want to ask you, in terms of, let's stick to the football side of things now.
Yeah.
When you were there, obviously you've played with the Iraqi national team. What was it like now, going from playing in England and then you're playing suddenly in the Iraqi league? What was that transition like?
It was a sweet transition, because their style of play is actually more accommodated to me than the English league. First of all, the weather. The weather's hot. Very hot.
And that's something you enjoy?
Sorry?
That's something you enjoy?
Oh, I love it. Why? Because it slows the game down and makes it tactical and technical. So you can't run around like a crazy person and then rest for a day or two, and then play another game and run around like a crazy person. It's more thoughtful, it's more tactical, it's more technical. And so that sort of game really suits me, and I love it. But at the same time, because I've got my English background of playing in the English league, I have the fitness levels. So I did enjoy it. I enjoyed playing against different Iraqi teams and playing for Erbil. And at the end of the day, it's my home country, man. I was born there, grew up there. My language was becoming better. Just meeting people of the same background, same color, same everything, culture. Really nice. Going to Baghdad for games, going to Basra for games, seeing new cities in Iraq. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
What about the quality of football in terms of like training and the coaching and the facilities?
It's all down to business, man. Remember, Iraq is coming out of, a dictatorship for the last however many years, since 2003, but there was problems. Let's say it's had like 10 years to come out of it. It's very small amount of time for it to prosper. So, but football clubs, businesses around Iraq, it needs people, it needs the right sort of people, it needs people with good heart to develop. It needs strong businessmen and women.
There's a lot that needs to be done.
There's a lot that needs to be done there for the level to come up. The players are the last resort. The players are just employees. But you can get players from everywhere in the world. You can get them from Africa, you can get them from Asia, you can get them from here, the UK, Europe. They'll go down there, but you've got to set up the right environment. And I don't think the right environment is set up right now for players all around the world to come to Iraq. If they do, and Iraq is built, I have no doubt that Iraq would be one of the best places in the world to live, one of the best places to play football, one of the best places to bring your children up, to bring your family to, and to prosper. I know Iraq could be that special place.
I guess it's our responsibility to make it happen, rather than just a dream. Yes, I want to jump into actually talking about the Iraqi national team. You made your debut against China, if I'm not mistaken, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember the match. We needed a desperate win to make it to the second stage of the qualifying rounds, and I'm sure Hassan remembers this as well. It was an incredible game. Hassan, what were your thoughts? Like, you're seeing Yaser Kasim is about to come on. It was under Hakeem Shakir. There weren't many expats. How excited were you?
Yeah, I remember that game. It's quite a while ago, but still vividly I remember it. Yaser Kasim, we had known you from your days at Swindon at the time, but not with the national team yet. So everybody was excited to see, what will you bring. But within 90 minutes, it was done. Best midfielder since Nashat Akram, in my opinion. At that game, I think we won 3-1.
Yeah, I remember 3-1
or something like that.
Mahmoud scored twice, and I think Ali Adnan scored the third.
And Ali Adnan.
Yeah, Yaser, how was it? Like you fitted in so seamlessly into that team. You didn't need like a proper like a training camp. You didn't feel out of place in the style of play. You just came in and just bossed it.
Yeah, when you're young, it's momentum, and I had the momentum with me, and also not thinking too much when you're young. So I didn't think too much about it. I had a bit of momentum with me. I went there and did it. But hey, remember also, I'd been there previously with previous managers and understood that, this is a little bit, it's a pear-shaped organization with the Iraqi teams and the Iraqi national team. So when I went there, I was just like, hey, let's just play football. And, luckily Hakeem started me and we got the win.
You went from there very quickly. You just turned into like a powerhouse in the world of Asian football. What do you remember? What were your thoughts on the 2015 Asian Cup?
Yeah, from qualifying against China to getting into the tournament, to getting to the tournament and playing teams in the tournament, it was awesome, man. Awesome.
I remember your goal against Jordan. What did it mean for you to score for Iraq?
It meant more for me that to take over that game, because I remember for that goal, I remember looking up. I don't know what minute I scored it, maybe 78th or whatever, but I looked up and it said 72 minute on the TV in the stadium, and I thought, hey, I got to take over this I got to take over this game and get something, because the next game was Japan, and Japan was very difficult. I knew they were a powerhouse of Asian football. They've come up the last 20 years. They've looked after their federation, finance, bringing players through some amazing. So I thought, that would be going to be a very difficult team. But after that, we had Palestine. So we had to get a result against Jordan, and I didn't want it to be a draw. So to actually get the goal, and it was the winning goal, very happy, because then we could go into Japan, and even if the result didn't go again with us, we could still qualify by beating Palestine, and that's how it worked.
It was 0-0 the Japan game, right?
No, they won 1-0.
Oh, they won, yeah.
On the penalty, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was yeah. Japan. Look, Japan was another Chelsea game. Another understanding of how they were operating. A higher level, a bunch of players played European football. I think they had Kagawa at that time. If not, they had Honda.
Kagawa and Honda, yeah.
Yeah, and then they had the left back at Inter Milan. I got his shirt.
Yep.
That was the only guy.
Nagatomo,
I got his shirt because my brother had lived in Japan and fluent Japanese. I wanted to give him the shirt, so I got a Japanese shirt. But yeah, that team played amazing football. So it's just the experiences, man. You're playing against Japan, and then you're playing against Jordan, our neighbours, and you've got a little bit of a history with, and you've got a back and forth. It's lovely playing that. Hey, once the game's over, it's over.
Yeah.
Say your goodbyes, say well done, move on to the next game, Japan, and then Palestine as well, meeting the guys, and some of the guys actually came to our hotel, and if I remember correctly, one of the guys took my shirt. I gave him one of my shirts, so it's just all of that sort of experience and getting the wins and stuff. But obviously nothing compares to the Iran game.
Okay, here we go. I was waiting for you to mention this. Talk me through that, man. That was, I think, till now, probably second or third craziest match I've ever seen. But it was amazing. I can't even imagine what it would have been like to play in that match.
Crazy game. Crazy up and down emotions. And it's Iran, your neighbours, and my father was drafted into the war against Iran and all that sort of stuff. And that sort of stuff is meaningless compared to football. Well, not meaningless. What I'm trying to say is, like, there's so much history to it. But at the end of the day, as you face off against your so-called rivals who are your neighbours, get put on a show for Iranians and Iraqis and made the best win. And we won. We, obviously got lucky in certain points. They got unlucky. We got unlucky in certain points, and they got unlucky. But it was a whole drama, a whole entertainment, and the whole world could, if they were watching that game, would have been, saying, they would have said that was a crazy 2 hours and an amazing 2 hours to watch. And we won it, and hey, it felt so good. But at the end of it, personally, I loved the fans that were there. I loved the Iraqis that were there, that were cheering us on. And I'm sure as any other player would be, I was emotionally and physically drained. So there wasn't much to think about.
You played half the match with your head wrapped.
Yeah, because I think, somebody cut me by hitting me through the back of my head and started bleeding. And it wasn't much the blood, it was more the headache, not headachy. Luckily, I wasn't getting double vision, but I was getting a little bit of a headachiness. But hey, once you're in the game, it doesn't matter, man. I could have got anything and I would play through it. As long as, obviously, nothing too dangerous. But, so, yeah, I wrapped it up. As long as the bleeding wasn't coming onto the T-shirt, I was good to go.
Okay, I want to ask you a question, and I know there's going to be very interested Iranians listening to this. Was it a sending off or not?
What, the Iranian? Oh, yeah, the Iranian issue. Hey, maybe so, maybe not. All I know is the more acting there is. At that time, I think the acting is a little bit stopped with VAR. VAR stopped the acting as much. But at that time, there wasn't VAR, and the more acting there is, the more difficult it is for the ref. So don't act. Just play your game and don't act. Unless, something's gone down that's really, really bad. Racism or an elbow off the ball. You go ahead and, talk to the ref and let him know. But I think certain people, they act a little bit too much. And what happens is it's a back and forth. And so the ref is so trying to get the right decision that he goes with what he thinks straight away. And he thought it was a red. And, hey, I agree with him, but at the end of the I kind of agree with him, but at the end of the day, it went to penalties, and you got to just make sure you win the penalty shootout.
All right,
that's
so
all.
What was going through your head when you took up, you were about to take that penalty?
Not much. I was thinking, first of all, I've never been in that sort of pressurized penalty taking position. So at the beginning, I was thinking, hey, I want to take a pen. What number was I going to go? So the coach obviously asked who wants to take it. There was a bunch of hands that gone up, and then we obviously looked at what number we were. I think I may have been third, I'm not sure, third or fourth, but I took so then it was all about jogging to the penalty spot and making sure I was in the right frame of mind to take my pen, because we've trained on penalties, but it's not the same pressure.
I can't even imagine the pressure, man. Like, when you're there, don't you think about all the fans, and if I miss this, all of Iraq is going to be heartbroken? Don't you think about any of these things?
Well, look, in any sort of work environment, you're going to think about, what do I need to do to succeed? So, for example, if you're doing a podcast like this, hey, I need the right equipment, I need the right questions, I need to do my research. So when I'm locked in with my players, I'm thinking about my breathing, I'm thinking about focusing in on getting to the penalty spot in the right frame of mind, but also because players had gone and shot previously to me, I was watching the goalkeeper. And I was thinking, hey, what can he do? That's where you shouldn't let the pressure get to you and then you don't think anymore. You got to think clearly. And at that time I was thinking, okay, what's the goalkeeper doing? And the goalkeeper was moving quite early and he was jumping early. So it felt like even if you went into the corner, he was going to kind of get there. He was a good goalkeeper. He wasn't a bad goalkeeper, their goalkeeper. He was quite athletic. So once you just get your breathing right and you get focused in, I was like, hey, let me just go into, if he's going to jump early, don't give him the eyes. I don't like to give the eyes to a goalkeeper, look one way and shoot the other. But kind of just shape your body to go one way and go the other. And don't go too much into the corner. Just make sure you get powerful in a good position of the goal. And luckily he didn't save it. I went and scored.
Did you send him the wrong way? I can't remember the penalty.
If I can remember correctly, he may have gone the wrong way, or he went the right way, but he went too low, and I went a little bit too high. I can't remember.
Yeah. All right. How did you celebrate that win, or how did the team celebrate that win?
Hey, as soon as the goal went in, I started running. I didn't run to player who scored the final goal. I ran to the fans to my left. I just celebrated with the fans. I was really hyped. I loved every minute of it. I loved the game. I loved the fact that we won. And then we just ended up going to the hotel and chilling.
You had a good relationship with Schneerschel, didn't you?
With who?
With Radi Schneerschel.
Yeah. I've never had I don't have bad relationships with the coaches. I don't really. I hope I don't. But the pressures of football get to everybody. But with Ravi, he was I felt he was a good guy. I went to his house one day, I think before the tournament, and I just saw the guy. I was like, this is a simple, honest, down-to-earth person. Whether he's coaching is top of the world or not, or whatever, I made the judgment and said, this is a good guy. I appreciate a good person. I appreciate a good guy, and I wanted to play for him, and that's why, you know, I tried my best and wanted him to do well as a coach in the Asia Cup.
When did you know you're going to be suspended for the semi-finals?
I knew straight away in the quarterfinals because of the pass that the player made, Ahmed made it from the back. Yeah, I knew. As soon as I got the yellow, I was really pissed off, but you got to get on with it. So I was kind of pissed off.
I'm still absolutely certain that if you were not suspended, I think we would have won it again.
I think we would have had a better chances against Korea, because watching Korea from the outside, they weren't like Japan. Japan were another force, and it wasn't as emotionally charged as Iran. So Korea was, if I could play that game, I don't know, but hey, you never know. Australia was a good team, and Korea weren't a bad team, but you know, you gotta get a little bit lucky. Maybe if I don't get, and I don't think it was a yellow, but he gave it very easily. But what can you do?
Yeah, that's football. It was a weird time, you in the Iraqi national team. It went from you being on top of the world to very quickly it seemed like the media was against you. It seemed like the people within the national team didn't really want you there, and they were making your life difficult. Can you shed any light on what happened?
Look, looking back at the end of the day, I feel like I went there, I did well, and kind of opened the doors to the foreign players. And that may not be a good business for the people who work with the Iraqi Federation, because foreign players do not work the way Iraqi style, as we say, Iraqi style works. They want to go there, play for the country, and do well, and get out and go home. But at the same time, national teams across the world sign contracts. They sign deals for big tournaments, they sign deals for qualifiers, they sign deals for friendlies, they sign deals about how they get their expenses paid, all that. That doesn't happen in Iraq. And when I opened that door, no, we don't have some sort of federation that talks to like a players' federation that talks to the federation, the Iraqi Football Federation, and get something good for the players and make things smooth out for everybody. So as well as I was going to do, and as well as the other foreign so-called expat players were going to do, the games in Iraq that get played is different. It's a different ball game. It's not to your face. It's behind closed doors, you know. It's too business-like. I don't know what to call it, but all Iraqis know it.
How different were you treated as an expat compared to the other players? Was it in your face? Was it kind of discreet?
I don't think I was treated any different. My Arabic wasn't as good as if I grew up in Iraq and I was schooled in Iraq. Like, grew up my whole life in Iraq and schooled in Iraq. So I didn't know how to portray it. Like, everybody gets treated differently in different countries. But once you know the language and you know the culture, the inside and out of the culture, you know what's happening.
So the other players treated you just as well? I mean, I've had numerous expat players complain to me, telling me players don't pass to them in training because they're expat. They don't talk to them. They have like little cliques where they isolate them.
Yeah. That happens all over the world. And at the end of the day, to stamp that out, you need to have the right system. And unfortunately for Iraq, the system in Iraq is not as good as different countries. So now, I'm not saying different countries have an amazing system, but they are better. So, if there's no passing, it's stamped out quicker than Iraq. If there's no communication, it's, hey, let's communicate quicker than Iraq. Iraq is not like that. Iraq is, hey, too many things behind, closed doors. Too many decisions. Just not enough good people.
You said like the manager earlier, right at the beginning, in fact, you said that the manager doesn't really have a say in terms of who gets to play and who's picked for the squads, etc. So how do players get selected? What's it based on?
It depends. It's cycles. Football is all about cycles. So one day it could be a manager who has the same agent who made the deal for him to coach the Iraqi team, and then they bring certain players, and those players sign with that agent and then go ahead and play for the national team. Another day it could be the federation picking the players for the manager, because the manager is close to a certain amount of guys in the federation, and those players play and then they get sold on to different clubs from their home clubs in Iraq. And there's so many different cycles, different ways, and that just gets in the way of making a good team, though. That's the problem, because a good team doesn't work like that. A good team has to have the right people in the right places and the best people in the training, in their clubs, making an impact in games.
So what do you think? What do you think the future has for Iraqi football?
If you look at Iraqi football, you got to look at it like a business, like Iraqi business. So you got to look at the future of Iraqi business. What's Iraqi business tied with? It's tied with Iraqi society. So what's the future of Iraqi society? I hope that Iraqi society would be like what I've heard back in the days, I don't know what era, but that back in the days where, palm trees and nice pavements and people living, simple but with a bit of lavishness, and working together to build a beautiful country. If you have that and good people, not scared, and commerce, different countries coming in, different kind of cultures coming in and living in Iraq and loving Iraq, that's tied. If that society is built, then obviously the good guys will take over Iraqi football, the good guys will take over other sports like tennis or whatever sports, basketball, whatever sports that's played, or in different commerce, different things, in banking and everything. It's tied to society. It's however that society wants to, what pathway it wants to go. And I'm not in the position to know that, because I got to live in Iraq, I got to get into that's a different world to me.
Yeah.
And that's what I think. I think hopefully one day good people take over the country and build it up, because I'm sure the finances of Iraq are better than most countries, because we've got oil.
Yes, my final question to you is the fans, man, they've been dying to hear from you, and it's been so long since they've been able to see anything on social media. I mean, your Twitter got hacked at one point, your Instagram has been inactive. Why have you decided to step away from social media?
Well, yeah, my social media got hacked at one point, but at the same time, I realized what social media was about. I don't really go on it too much anymore, because other than sort of business related things, because I feel like it kind of messes with your mind. Social media is an overload of information, and even though there might be some good bits of information, it's nonetheless an overload of information, and it's too much. So I don't get on it anymore, and it's not real. It's not real. If you look at it, you don't know what's the truth and what's the untruth. So I'm just looking to, get on it for business related issues, and and not really show my life or
So for
show myself.
For all the fans who've been desperate to hear from you, have you got like a final message to them? Just like something to tell them since it's been so long?
Same as always, man. I love you guys. Hopefully I'll be moving on to a new chapter in my life, a new club, and I'll keep maturing and doing my thing. And whoever is out there, whether it's in Iraq or all around in any part of the world, whatever age you are, just keep moving forward and keep pushing for your dreams and doing well for yourself and your happiness. And if you ever come across me, just say hi.
Yaser, thank you so much, man. I know you're looking for a new club now. Good luck with that. I'm sure we're gonna be telling our fans, our fan base, all about that move. We want to make sure you tell us as well before anything happens, because we want to share that news with our fans, and they're desperate to hear all about you. But yeah, man, listen, thank you so much. I can't tell you like in words what it means for me to be able to sit and have this conversation with you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you face to face very, very soon, inshallah.
All right, bro. I look forward to it. We'll grab a coffee.
Hopefully.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right, well,
all right, man.
Until then, bro, take care.
Take care, guys.
Wow, what a conversation. That was so interesting to hear from somebody with that much experience playing all across the world now. I'm really excited to see where the next career move takes Yaser, and I wish him all the best. Hassan, how did you feel listening to all that and having that discussion with him?
Yeah, 100% same thoughts. Really looking forward to see where he's going to go next. He's had a very eventful career so far and has stayed out of the media for a very long time. So it was pretty big to have him with us today.
Yeah.
So,
What would you say is your Yaser Kasim highlight?
In terms of, career-wise, I can't top the Asian Cup 2015. That was, outstanding. Just like the level he reached, and then since then we haven't seen too much of him. But we'll see what the future holds.
Yeah, 100%, man. I think there's still an incredible midfielder there. I played football with Yaser the other day. Not saying I'm a professional or anything, but honestly, without even breaking sweat, he scored 5 ridiculous goals against me. I'm a goalkeeper, for those who don't know. And there's levels to it, man. And this guy is just such a phenomenal footballer. And maybe he's not reached the potential that he could have done, but he's an incredible footballer, and I think he's just been unlucky in terms of getting a break. And I really wish him all the best, and inshallah we see him do well in his career in the next move, and fingers crossed maybe we see him in the Iraq shirt again. Do you think that'll happen?
Yeah. Anything is possible moving forward. He just needs the right environment. We'll see what his next move is going to be club-wise, and we'll see how Katanec what he decides. It's all going to have to come back to his next move. But there's definitely a good player there. We haven't seen enough of him with the national team. That's the problem. We know what he's capable of, but it was short-lived, unfortunately, for a whole bunch of different reasons. But he's a great player, and more importantly, a great guy as well. So we really hope to see them there.
And he seems to have matured a lot as well. So hopefully he gets that break. In terms of the next podcast, we'll try our best to do one in a month's time. We'll do like a preview. Iraq, they should have a friendly with Oman. That'll be on the 13th of November, and we're trying, I think that the Iraqi FA, they're trying to also organise one with Uzbekistan on the 17th of November. So what we'll do, we'll have a podcast for October, and then we'll make one for the November following the matches. Hassan, where can the fans find you?
Yeah, primarily on Twitter at Hassan O_1193. That's pretty much where I am.
And guys, find me on Twitter at Iraq Football Pod. Find me on Instagram at Iraq Football Pod, or on my personal account at Hassanin, Hassane. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a comment, leave us a visit the website, I should say, www.iraqfootball.me for Middle East. And yeah, just get in touch, man. Share the podcast with your friends and family, and we look forward to chatting to you guys very, very soon. Until then, look after yourselves, be safe, and Yalla Ya Iraq.